This is big breaking news. A nuclear warning has just been issued for the United States and NATO. We are also seeing countries within NATO building their nuclear bunker systems and updating them, and a military draft has been initiated inside of NATO countries as well too. So we're going to get into all the details here. You guys can see this nuclear warning was just issued by a top Norway defense official. Okay, you can see here it says Putin is amassing nuclear weapons and attacks submarines in the Arctic Circle as Russia prepares for war with NATO, Norway says. You can also see here Croatia introduces military conscription as Europe worries about Russia-Ukraine war. Okay, Croatia is a NATO country, and they are bringing back their mandatory military draft. We'll get into more details of that. And also, Sweden is spending millions of dollars revamping its vast network of bunkers. Okay, so lots of huge news going on, and this is big. Let's get into this. You can see here that Norway's defense minister, Tor Sandvik, claimed his country had found Russia had been increasing its military presence in the Arctic, particularly in the Kola Peninsula. The politician also said that Putin had been attempting to take over the Arctic region, where its fleet is based, to block shipping routes to NATO allies if war broke out. And something that NATO has that's a critical advantage compared to NATO for a Arctic war, is their nuclear-powered icebreakers. Okay, you can see here he warned that Russia is building up on the Kola Peninsula, where one of the largest arsenals of nuclear warheads in the world is located. Mr. Sandvik told The Telegraph, quote, the nuclear weapons are not only pointed towards Norway, but towards the UK and over the pole towards Canada and the United States. Russia is kind of this country that we think of, oh, it's so far away. It's really not that far. It is right next to Alaska. It is right across the sea from Canada and the US, okay? You can see here, quote, we are the eyes and ears of NATO in this area, and we are seeing that they're testing new weapons, for example, hypersonic missiles, and they're testing a nuclear-driven torpedo and nuclear warheads. The Kola Peninsula, famed for accommodating the world's most condensed nuclear weapon stockpile, plays a key role in the Kremlin's ability to deliver a, quote, second strike. The term second strike refers to a nation's ability to retaliate following an initial nuclear strike by a rival. You can see here they have some good maps showcasing the Arctic Circle here. And you can see Canada, Alaska, Greenland, it's all right there. Even the UK is really not that far away from Russia when you're thinking of the perspective from the top of the earth. Okay, these things are actually pretty close. And Russia has a major advantage because they could actually break up. They have these nuclear-powered icebreaker fleets. You can see the location of all these different bases in Russia that are along the Arctic Circle. But these fleets can create pathways and passages for blockades to be set up in very hard to get to places and very obscure places. Okay, they could get their fleets, they could cut a line right through to get to Canada or the US, or they can use it to cut off certain areas and get in and set up their fleets there. All right, so they're talking about taking control of these trade routes if a big war did break out. You can see here the Northwest Passage, Transpolar Sea Route, and the Northern Sea Route, all which are critical to trade for the United States, Europe, and Asia. Okay, it's one of these places you don't typically think of routes and planes, things like that going through, but a lot of critical supply chain goods actually move through this region. All right, so you can see the UK right there. They're really not that far apart. Okay, we're used to the typical flat map, rectangular. But when you put it in a 3D space like this kind of gives you the true distances from these countries. And you can see here, Russia is right there next to Alaska, and it's not far from Canada or Europe at all, right? So they're warning that this nuclear stockpile can potentially be targeted towards the US. That's what top Norwegian NATO officials are warning of. You can also see here it says the distance from a northwestern Europe port to the far east along the Northeast Sea route is almost 40% shorter than the traditional route via the Suez Canal. Other sea routes are becoming more accessible for more of the year. Okay, so these are actually critical routes, and they're worried that Russia could seize or take control of these routes if any type of larger conflict did break out, or at least create a headache in this region. All right, let's get into this military draft. You can see here Croatia introduces military conscription as Europe worries about Russia-Ukraine war. It says Croatia's parliament on Friday voted to reintroduce compulsory military service in the European Union and NATO member country. The move comes amid heightened tensions in Europe following the Russian aggression against Ukraine, as well as an apparent arms race and military buildup in the Balkans, which went through a bloody war in the 90s. It says lawmakers approved the changes in a 84-11 vote. All right, so pretty outstanding vote odds against it. It says there were 151 members in the parliament, so well over half, and then a lot of them just didn't vote at all. And it says here the army service will last 2 months and provide, quote, basic military training, public broadcaster HRT said. The decision marks a return to conscription, which was suspended in 2008 when the country shifted to a volunteer system. Croatia's defense ministry said the aim is to teach young people basic skills and knowledge that are, quote, needed in crisis situations so they would contribute to national security. All right. Countries in Europe are getting ready for something big. There hasn't been this big of a buildup in decades. It says authorities will start calling conscripts born in 2008 for medical checkups by the end of the year. Conscripts will receive a salary, and conscientious objectors can choose civilian service instead. Croatia has been boosting its armed forces at a time when many European countries fear that the war in Ukraine could spill over. All right, so this is big that they are announcing this. And you can see here Croatia is not even near the Russian border. It's not bordering Ukraine. It's actually over here by Italy. And even they are getting prepared and getting ready. All right, they're worried that this could potentially spark into a larger war between these Balkan countries. Okay, so something to be aware of, something to be prepared for. Switzerland is also warning that they are revamping their bunker networks. Okay, you can see here it says being prepared is something of a national sport in Switzerland, where service in the military or civil defense force is mandatory, and the country is pitted with a network of about 370,000 personal shelters, ensuring a secretly assigned place for each of its nearly 9 million residents. Separate spaces are designated for civil protection forces and the military. I wish that was something that the United States had, honestly, some type of like bunker system that is publicly accessible, because if anything like that ever happened here, I don't know, there's really not anything like that on a government level. It says now the famously neutral country is spending hundreds of millions overhauling its vast network of personal shelters and civil protection sites in light of the, quote, changing global security situation. In 2006, a new civil protection ordinance will come into effect that will see 200 large bunkers modernized at a total cost of $276 million over 15 years. The fee property developers must pay to local authorities to fund public shelters will also rise from about 1,000 to more than 1,700 per person. Okay, so they are spending hundreds of millions of dollars revamping this, working on this. It says separately work is underway across Switzerland's regional authorities known as cantons to revamp aging ventilation and filtration systems on existing bunkers, reaching the end of their 40-year life cycle. A $1.2 billion fund is available for this over the next 15 years, and the time frame can be expedited if necessary, a Swiss spokesperson said. The Army is also calling for ideas on how existing military fortifications could be modernized to, quote, harden to attack defense nodes, inviting companies and startups to submit their ideas this month. All right, so this is a full societal mobilization in a lot of these European countries. Okay, they're telling people to prepare, they're telling people to stock up and have food, have batteries, radios. I made a video just a couple weeks ago how multiple European countries are warning their citizens to take preparedness seriously, how people are selling out these certain foods, all right, these certain preparedness foods, freeze-dried foods, things like that, that are in Europe, certain companies are selling out because people are buying so much preps right now, right? So take this serious. Make sure you have preps yourself, because if NATO is attacked or NATO becomes involved somehow in a larger conflict, Article 5 could be enacted, and the United States could easily be dragged into one of these conflicts to defend the NATO territory. Okay, so this affects the United States as well too. It's easy to write it off as, oh, that's in Europe, it's far away. But once again, these places are not far away. Okay, when you really look at a proper map, really not far away. And we are in NATO as well too. So anything that happens to a NATO country in Europe, it's essentially happening to the US as well too. All right, so be prepared. Be ready, be stocked up. Don't let your preps get low. Keep your gas tanks filled up just in case. And have some backups, right? That's what they are warning people. And I really wish we had a bunker system here in the United States. Is something that I don't understand why we don't have it. I mean, look at this. This isn't luxury or anything, but it's a safety net. Right? And a lot of European countries actually have this because they've been through world wars. They've been through serious military conflicts, and they know that it could happen again. So, I mean, look at this. They have bunk beds, they have air filtration systems, they have places set up for their citizens to go. And it's not going to be, like staying at the Holiday Inn or anything like that. But it'll save your life, okay? Maybe you could stay there for a couple of days and you'll make it through, right? You could say emergency exits and airlocks are designed to withstand nuclear, biological, or chemical weapons even, okay? Nothing like this really exists. There's private bunkers that billionaires are building inside the United States like crazy, but there's no public bunkers like this that exist inside the United States. Maybe there's a few of them spread out, but they're nothing like this. They're nothing where they're actually prepared for something big to happen. There might be some type of like bomb shelter or something like that in a few places in the United States, but we need to have this too, right? We have, what's our national debt? $36 trillion. And I see all these other countries, not all these other ones, but I see other countries where they just have certain things that we don't have here. And it doesn't make sense. It's like, how do they have money for it? They're spending a few $1 billion to revamp all this stuff. The U.S. spends a few $1 billion within a few minutes. maybe every minute. I'm not sure on the numbers, but 38 trillion, I believe, 36 or 38 trillion dollars the national debt is currently. And there's really just not a lot to show for it in the public sector, okay, for our society as a whole. You think there would be like futuristic trains, transportation hubs, things like that. You would think places would be incredibly safe and nice and clean and updated. You'd think we'd have top-of-the-line security systems, bunker systems, things like that, in case of any type of war. But we're really lacking, right? We really do not have what we should have spent, all right? If we really spent $36 trillion, it was not spent on anything useful, it seems. Okay, so thank you guys. I hope you guys are staying safe, staying prepared out there. I hope you have big blessings for your life and your family, and I hope you have a big old blessed day.